Check 1 2, check 1 2. Let's go. Number one commentary channel on YouTube. We're finally back, guys. Happy New Year. First live stream of the year. We're going to be talking some big fight announcements, and I'm excited to be back because the fights that we just got recently, as far as what was announced, I think were just fights that we needed. Now, do they live up to the expectations that we have? Perhaps not, right? I don't know if my desktop, I think that was playing in the background. So if so, I truly apologize. Let me quickly, gotta work on a couple things in the background in order to not have these little technical difficulties. But guys, I am extremely excited. I'm looking forward to today. A couple topics that we have to discuss that I think interest you guys as well. Just to read off a bit, Francis Ngannou versus Anthony Joshua. I guess he fumbled the bag again, and he has another big fight where he'll make probably, I don't know, quadruple what he made in the UFC once again. We have Dustin Poirier fighting Benoit Saint Denis, where I don't even think that's how you say his last name. It sounds very feminine the way I say it. But who wins this fight? Poirier, I was initially surprised that it wasn't someone like Chandler, Gaethje, McGregor, Nate Diaz, just some huge name, or I don't know, something that is top 2 or above. He's taking on an up-and-comer, a guy on a 5-fight win streak. So we'll talk about that shortly. Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan is a banger, and maybe my prediction, if you haven't watched my last video that I just came out with, that might be a shock to you as far as who I have winning. Then we have the topic about UFC 300 and whether they have some issues, right? And by issues, I mean, does the UFC lack stars as far as what other big names out there can they bring out to make UFC 300 a legendary card? Because what they got right now is just not living up to the hype, right? Then we got Sean Strickland crying as well, too. And the question is he a hypocrite? All that and more we'll talk about. But before we get into some predictions, guys, let's first talk about this lineup. Let's talk about UFC 300. We're going to look at it on paper. We're going to see if we like this card. But that's the first thing we're going to talk about. Before that, Hollywood Hito in the building. What's up, Hito? Thank you for always coming through. He says, wow, starting the new year off 5 minutes late. I mean, listen. New year, not new me. No, we got to work on a couple things. We'll get there when we get there. I've been saying that since 2021. But nonetheless, breaking news. Here we go. UFC 300. This is at least what we have so far for UFC 300. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for post notifications. Let me know you're in here. Maybe I'll make a poll. Let me see. Quick poll that we can make. Let's see real quick before we start talking about this card. UFC 300. Let's see real quick. Let's start with this poll, with this question. UFC 300. This is what we have so far, guys. Bo Nickal versus Cody Brundage. Maybe that's not enough. If you were to say that, I would say I agree with you. Listen, Cody Brundage has, 10 more fights. Triple the amount of fights almost that Bo Nickal has. Nonetheless, Cody, no one gives him a chance. Then we have Calvin Kattar versus Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain Sterling moving up to 145, right? Fighting Calvin Kattar. Is it an interesting fight? Yes, for the diehard fans. If you were to walk down the street, let's say you're in Wyoming and you ask someone who Conor McGregor is, they're going to tell you. But let's say you ask who Calvin Kattar and Aljamain Sterling is, they're not going to know. And for one of the most historic cards, again, I'm an Aljamain Sterling fan. I don't want to sound like a hater, but I'm talking as a fan. I'm talking as far as pay-per-view buys and what 300 should entail. UFC 300. Calvin Kattar versus Aljamain Sterling. Great fight on paper as far as for me. I want to see what Aljamain Sterling does at 145. Could we have saved this for maybe 301, 302, 299, 298? I think so. But anyways, Aljamain Sterling, Calvin Kattar. Then we have Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. Because Islam Makhachev is out, I don't know if you guys heard. If not, hopefully that's breaking news to you. If not, and you heard it here first. But the breaking news as far as that fight is made because Islam is hurt. But what Dana White did say is that Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan, the winner of that fight, is gonna be fighting Islam next for the title. So that makes sense. That's a good fight. I like it. It is a little bit right? As far as 300, you want to see Makhachev on there. But because he's dealing with an injury, we're not going to be able to see him. Hollywood Hito says, wait, is Leon and Bilal confirmed? That's what's supposed to happen. Let's for just for the purpose of tonight's or today's live stream. For the purpose of that, let's just say it's supposed to be Bilal Muhammad. So let's just say it is Leon Edwards. I'm not saying it's the main event, but let's hypothetically say this is what's going to happen next, and let's feed off of that. Jesus in the building says, saludos. What's up, Jesus? Welcome back. Happy New Year's. And we'll talk about that in a bit, Hito. Jesus says, why is Poirier facing number 12 rank? Listen, I'm just as surprised as you. I didn't expect to see Dustin Poirier not fight anyone under the top 5. He usually doesn't want those fights. When it was Beneil Dariush, he made it pretty obvious, and he was very clear in his argument that, listen, that fight doesn't excite me. Teron Brown in the building. What's up, bro? Welcome back to the stream. How you doing, man? Happy New Year's to you as well. It's always good to have you back. But let's go through this card as far as 300. We got plenty of other topics to talk about. But Oliveira versus Tsarukyan, Calvin Kattar versus Aljamain Sterling, Bo Nickal versus Cody Brundage. Then we have Harry Prohaska versus Alexander Rakic. Again, I like the fight. Is it 300 worthy? Is it UFC 300 worthy? And then we have Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad. Let's pretend this isn't a main event fight, because let's be honest, you guys know I'm one of the biggest Leon fans. But if you were to tell me for UFC 300 that it's going to be Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad, Bilal Mr. Decision Muhammad for the main event, I'm not excited. I do like the fights that are on here on this card, but what else could be added to live up to the hype? Or is it simply just too late? Because if we quickly glance over and just take a peek at UFC 299, the main event is better, right? O'Malley versus Vera, as far as on paper. Dustin Poirier versus Benoit, I like the fight. Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena. You want to push Jack as far as to become the next star in the welterweight division, one of the up-and-coming fighters at 170. Good fight to make. Curtis Blaydes versus Jailton Almeida. A lot of people are big on Almeida. Good fight to make. You have Petr Yan versus Song Yadong. I don't know who I want to pick in that fight. And again, Petr Yan is one of my favorite fighters. You guys have heard me say that before. Michael Venom Page transitioning to the UFC. Kevin Holland versus Kevin Holland. Good fight. We got Gamrot versus RDA. Couple other fights as well, too. We got Kyler Phillips coming back against Pedro Munoz. This on paper is better. Granted, it's earlier, right? But this on paper is better than UFC 300. And my question to you guys is, as we discuss these two cards, is simply, does the UFC have a star problem? We know Conor McGregor isn't going to be on 300. We know Islam Makhachev isn't going to be on 300. What other names in the UFC rankings that's available? Because we know that Drakus and Sean Strickland are in the next pay-per-view. Alex Pereira probably, I guess he might come back for 300, and maybe that makes it exciting. What happens? Is there anybody out there? John Jones? Probably not. I mean, I'm not excited for John Jones versus Stipe, so I hope they don't save that for 300. But nonetheless, with the available names that I'm just quickly scanning through, I think it's a dub. I know it's a little bit premeditated. I know it's a little bit early. By the way, 267-545-8096. If you want to call in and talk about, leave a voicemail on what you think about UFC 300, UFC 299. And I just wanted to quickly glance at that before we talk about some other subjects. But UFC 300, is there hope? Is my simple question. Let's catch up with chat. And the very first message in 2024 from Beta is, what's up, chat? What's up, Beta? Welcome back. Welcome to the stream. It's great to have you. Some OGs in the chat. Make sure you hit the thumbs up and hit the bell for post notifications. And 2024 is a year of Hollywood, Tecito. if you mean by your year, I hope you mean that you're going to improve in your predictions, because 2023 was horrible for you. I think you picked Ryan Garcia to beat Gervonta Davis. I think you picked Kobe to beat Leon. I mean, the list goes on. So I do truly hope that it's a better year for you as well. Tehran says, it's crazy how people are overlooking Dustin Poirier and Charles. They're both going to win their fights. Interesting that you say that. Can we start off with the big fight announcement that we got yesterday from Dana White? This whole year, I'm going to call him Dana Blanco. You won't hear me refer to him as Dana White for the rest of the year. Let's talk about the 2 fights announced. That being 299, 300, Poirier versus Benoit, Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. Let's first talk about Poirier versus Benoit. Had to make some tea with some turmeric, some ginger. We're trying to be healthy all 2024. Let's talk about these 2 fights. Let me catch you with chat, and we're going to talk about that immediately, Tehran. Justin Gaethje versus Holloway, UFC 300 main event. Even if that were to be made, I like that on the card. It improves it. And now we're talking. But it doesn't live up to the hype of a 3. Again, maybe I know this is silly because I know Conor McGregor, as far as championship aspirations, is probably dumb to think about. But as far as ticket sales and as far as wow factor and big names for 300, it's almost underwhelming if you don't have McGregor on there. And like, what other name can you put on 300 that really lifts up the card? As far as main event, like, who should be the main event for 300? Because I've been breaking my head about this topic for quite some time. Hollywood Hito says, yo, Sugar is so bad at selling that they have to make 299 better than 300 to sell. You saw his beef with Ilia Topuria and the back and forth that they have been having. So it's interesting that you say that. Maybe he isn't the draw that people thought he was. You saw Topuria say, listen, your crowd are a bunch of teenagers. They don't buy pay-per-views. And that leads to my question that I think might be my next video, as far as, is the UFC struggling with stars, right? It's a question that we can have. But let's go back to what Tehran Brown said and what I had in mind. UFC 299 first. There was 2 fights announced. Poirier, Benoit, Oliveira, Arman Tsarukyan. First off, Dustin Poirier versus Benoit. Let's talk about this fight. My first initial thoughts, again, 267-545-8096. If you want to call in and share your thoughts on this news that Dustin Poirier is going to be fighting Benoit next. Interesting fight. You know, he's coming off a loss against Justin Gaethje, the head kick knockout. But Dustin Poirier is not the type to fight someone in the, someone ranked number 13, 14, 15, 12. He's fighting number 12 ranked Benoit. Benoit, on the other hand, is on a 5-fight win streak. Benoit, on the other hand, is coming off an impressive knockout himself, ironically enough. He won by head kick knockout, where Poirier lost by head kick knockout. He's on a 5-fight win streak. But I was looking at his record, right? And maybe I'm a little bit salty, just a little bit. Maybe I'm a little bit salty that he beat Frevola when I thought the Steamroller was going to get a win. Perhaps. I got to be honest. And I know people are big on Benoit being the next up-and-comer. Let me just quickly remind you guys, or present to you guys. I almost feel like I'm sounding like Chael Sonnen as far as I lead up to my argument. Look at the names that he has beaten. Granted, 3 performances of the night in the last 5 fights that he has had in the UFC. He lost his first fight in the UFC, 5-fight win streak afterwards. Good wins, impressive knockout. Performance of the night against Frevola. This might sound a little blasphemous. Hear me out. And if I'm wrong, we'll come back to it. But again, 2023 was a big year for me. Let me remind you, Leon Edwards, I had him to beat Usman. I had him beating Covington. The list goes on all the fight. I picked O'Malley to beat Sterling when most people felt Sterling would get the win. I couldn't miss all 2023. And one of my first arguments for 2024 is I don't see it. Benoit is good, but I don't think he's that good.
I don't mean no disrespect on that, Henry, but
I think he's good. I don't think he's that good. And I think there are levels. Then again, Dustin Poirier has been around for some time, maybe past the allotted time that the MMA gods have given him. I'll give you that. And perhaps as well, too, he doesn't come back after a head kick knockout as he was once before. as dominant. Maybe his chin isn't as good. Maybe striking wise, Benoit, his first combination stuns Poirier. Listen, that's all possible. But I think there's levels. Benoit's best win is against maybe Thiago Moises, if not Matt Favola. He's solid. But I think in a 5-round fight, I think in a fight for UFC 299 as the co-main, I just believe, and remember, it's a 5-round fight, 5-minute round fight. I think as Poirier presses forward, stands in the pocket, Benoit maybe starts off hot, just the way Gaethje always does. Starts off hot, lands big shots, but Poirier is still there. Benoit isn't the biggest as far as striker. He's solid. But I wouldn't say he has the biggest power in the division. And I think as rounds progress, I think as the fight goes on, I truly do believe experience is going to show. Being there before is going to show. I have Poirier winning. Now, am I looking back at a Poirier in his prime and is Poirier's best days behind us after that knockout loss against Gaethje? You guys let me know, but that's how I have it. Let's catch up with chat. UFC 300 doesn't need McGregor. He almost 40 years old. But they need bigger fights. Because the reason I say that is because it's supposed to be like the most legendary card, right? 100, 200, 300. Like it's a number that needs to have the biggest fights of the year, arguably, even though it's early in the year or halfway through the year. What else do they do? Jesus. UFC needs young bloods, guys who are. I agree. I'm talking specifically for UFC for UFC 300. Now, progressing after that, I think the number one contender should fight the champion. I think Belal should fight Leon Edwards next. There are arguments for other fights, and I could make those as well too, and I have. I agree. I hope the rankings matter, and I hope they progress in a way where, you know, rankings matter and there's integrity and the best fight the best and young fighters get opportunities. I'm surprised that Benoit has a chance against Poirier because, again, Poirier doesn't usually do that. He was a little bit too bougie for Beneil Dariush, as surprising as that sounds. Mateus Gamrot versus Poirier, better option? No, I like the Benoit fight. I don't mind it. I think it's pretty cool that he has traction. He has been able to win the belief of fans. Fans believe that he's one of the next up and comers in the lightweight division. Just like fans believe that, you know, Arman was, and now he's getting the shot. If you look at the lightweight rankings, I think you can almost say it's plagued. It's plagued by old names that need to fight or get out. Now, Justin Gaethje was one of those, right? Before he fought Fiziev. He beat Fiziev. Then he beat Poirier, so you got to say at that point, he belongs where he's at. But Poirier has been coasting in that number 3 spot for quite some time. I don't know if he belongs at number 3. I don't know if he's that good. He's going to have to prove it. And now he's fighting number 12. So we'll see. Now, would I have picked Poirier against Tsarukyan? I don't think so. He lost to Poirier. Oliveira. He has had plenty of chances. So Poirier fighting the number 1 contender or the champion back and forth, over and over again. He doesn't deserve that. I give him credit for fighting Benoit at number 12. I'm surprised. But I do like the matchup. If Benoit is supposed to be the next up-and-comer, give him the shot. A great gatekeeper test is Dustin Poirier. What happened to Justin Gaethje? Gaethje, I guess we're still waiting to see how they line him up. I presented the argument before that I rather see Gaethje and McGregor than McGregor and Chandler. It was a fight that I preferred. But I guess we're still waiting on what's news with him. Scory in the building. Welcome back. Happy New Year's. Scory LOL. Always coming through with the blue glove. The DC Fight Club member. Appreciate all the members in chat. Remember, you could become a member today and help the channel. Help us keep growing in 2024. Scory, how do you feel about Poirier and Benoit? But with all that being said, as far as my initial reaction when I saw that Dana White announced, first off, again, I was surprised. Benoit getting the shot against Dustin Poirier, I like it. I'm going with the veteran. As we progress and talk about the next fight that was announced, That being for UFC 300, which again, as far as on paper, I'm not the most excited for. 267-545-8096 if you want to share a voicemail. We do have a voicemail, I just noticed. Let's play it. Let's see what the first caller of the day has to say. If you want to share your thoughts on the new fights announced, again, 267-545-8096. Let's get to the first caller that left a voicemail and take it from there. Here we go.
Well, first voicemail of 2024, of course, is yours truly, Hollywood. And you know what? I want this year to be the year of Hollywood. But I have a feeling Dana White is fucking up 300. I just don't see what he's going to...
Let me see if I can raise the volume on this. I hear you clear, but I don't know if chat does, so I want to make sure. Oh, of course it was low here. Cool. I think I fixed it. Let's play that
2024, of course, is yours truly, Hollywood. And you know what? I want this year to be the year of Hollywood. But I have a feeling Dana White is fucking up 300. I just don't see what he's going to pull out. Like, what he should have done was get McGregor on 300 and then you stack the card. You're going to make it phenomenal, you know?
Agreed, man. I think remember the Contender Series or the Ultimate Fighter, I'm sorry, where it was McGregor versus Chandler. We've been waiting for this fight for some time now. I'm not necessarily the most excited for McGregor versus Chandler, but it's almost like a no-brainer. Why would he put that on any other card besides UFC 300? That was a little bit strange. I agree with Hito on that one. He's starting off the year okay, but again, he picked Ryan Garcia to beat Gervonta Davis. Anyways, what's up, Zelman? Welcome to the stream, man. Thank you for being here.
Could almost even deal with a Leon and Bilal if McGregor was headlining. But now you need like a Leon and Jorge to get on there, and you definitely need like a Holloway and Gaethje.
He says you need a Leon and Jorge Masvidal. Again, guys, you might be tempted to hit the unsubscribe button if I were to tell you I wouldn't mind the Leon versus Masvidal fight either. Made a video on about it. Can't say I disagree, but don't hit the unsubscribe button just yet. There's reason for it. But let's see what else Hito has to say.
And you definitely need like a Holloway and Gaethje, and hopefully maybe like a Pereira to get back, because you just lost your main draw. He's fighting International Fight Week, which is Conor McGregor. And I know you guys will say like, oh, he's old, he's going to sell. And he would sell the most at UFC 300. Now,
Hito has been hit with some logic this new year.
You're gonna have to stack up this. You have to stack up this card, and I just don't see it. I don't see it being better than 299. 299 stacked up, but you know why that's stacked up? O'Malley can't sell, so you got to stack it up when you have an O'Malley fight coming to town. So yeah, I'm just kind of confused. I don't know. Dana just didn't wake up this year and decide to be Hollywood like me.
That is officially the first call of 2024. A lot of bold claims being made. We need fights like Leon versus Masvidal at UFC 300. They fumbled the bag with having Conor McGregor. We'll talk about fumbling in a bit. But a lot of big fight news this year, starting off a little strange, right? As far as what's made and who's on the shelf and what could be done next. Points that we agree with Hito. I guess I'll say, listen, I don't know if I want to go down this path, so I'm going to choose my words wisely. I'll say this. You can't have Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad as a co-main or a main event for UFC 300. And it appears that's what's going to be on the card. All I'm going to say is that's not what you want for what's supposed to be your most memorable card of the year. I'll agree with Hito on that one. You have to stack the card, and I don't see it. I'm pessimistic on what happens. Now, another claim that Hito made that I wasn't necessarily prepared to talk about, but I want your guys' opinion, is this whole thing about stacking UFC 299 for Sean O'Malley. Do you guys believe that it's true that they're stacking this card because Sean O'Malley doesn't sell? We've seen the comments made by Ilya Topuria where he says something along the lines of, well, O'Malley, I'm not interested in fighting you because your crowd, your following, your demographic is a bunch of teenagers and you don't sell. And the UFC told me your numbers and they're horrible. I'm going to beat Volkanovski and then I'm going to fight McGregor next. You got to get past Volkanovski first, and that's going to be a tough That's tough enough. So maybe he should focus on that. But is this all? Is there credibility? Is it true that Sean O'Malley doesn't sell? Because I remember when he beat Aljamain Sterling, the first thing the UFC did was post that fight right after when it was a pay-per-view night. It was like at 2 a.m. that they posted that. Got millions of views. It was exciting. It held shock value as far as him knocking out a worthy title holder in Aljamain Sterling. Now he's going up to 145. But as far as on paper, you look at this card, O'Malley and Vera, they did stack it better than 300. I think Gilbert Burns versus Jack is a great fight. I might have to go with Jack on that one as well, too. You have now Poirier versus Benoit, and it's not a 3-round fight. It's a 5-round fight. I think that benefits Poirier a bit more than it does Benoit. But we get 2 5-round fights, one being a title fight between Vera and O'Malley, that being a grudge match. And then they put fights like Curtis Blades versus Almeida, 2 contenders in the heavyweight division that I can see Almeida doing decent against Tom Aspinall, maybe even Curtis Blades as well, too. We saw Aspinall hurt himself. Then you got Petr Yan versus Song Yadong. That's a great fight. You have Michael Venom Page. Whatever you think about him, you might think he's over the hill. He's too old. At the end of the day, he's a big name, and he's fighting Kevin Holland. And I think that's going to be an interesting fight to watch live. I think this card is great. But did the UFC stack this card even more than 300 at the very moment because O'Malley isn't the draw that they expected? And if that's the case, are they struggling with making big fights? And are they struggling with having big names in their promotion? Because what other big names besides O'Malley is out there? Alex Pereira? Is that like one of the biggest names that we can talk about? Leon Edwards isn't maybe the biggest draw. You have Dricus, you have Sean Strickland. My argument was that Khamzat Chimaev was supposed to be one of those guys that were supposed to be next up as far as the face of the UFC. But I think that train has left us. With him getting sick, with him slowing down in the amount of times he was fighting per year, with him not looking as dominant at 185 as he did at 170, I think that hype has died down. I don't think he draws the same attention. I don't think he sells the same amount of tickets. I think, frankly enough, I think he's not as skilled as most people thought he was when he first entered the UFC. So if it's not Khamzat Chimaev, if it's not Sean O'Malley, if it's not Sean Strickland that could carry the torch, Islam Makhachev, maybe they are struggling with making big names, selling big fights. Now, going back to UFC 300, I can't say that it isn't a good fight. I do like Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. Now, maybe this is where you guys come in and you knock some sense into me. But once again, just like I said about Dustin Poirier versus Benoit, I picked Dustin Poirier. That might sound a little blasphemous. For this fight as well, too, this is where I'll admit I might be a bit off on this one. I might be. But I'm going with the veteran again in Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira has been doubted before. They didn't see him beating Michael Chandler, especially after that first round. What does he do? Weathers a storm, beats him in round 2. He wasn't supposed to be Dustin Poirier. Granted, first 2 rounds didn't look horrible. 3rd round gets it done against Justin Gaethje. Rear naked chokes him in the first round. Then he hit a little bit of a stumbling block, lost to Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev, he said he wasn't himself. Remember the weighing in, the scale issues. He was a little bit perplexed or a little bit bothered at everything that was happening. He loses to Islam Makhachev. Then when it was Beneil Dariush, I thought he wasn't going to win that fight. I'll be honest. I had Beneil winning. He blew him out the water. He looked impressive. I'll give him credit. But now he's fighting Arman Tsarukyan. Remember, the Islam Makhachev rematch was canceled. And the winner of Tsarukyan and Oliveira gets the shot at the title next. Tehran says Justin G would do some evil things to McGregor. With those leg kicks from hell, I can see Justin knocking out Conor violently and making him retire. I could perhaps see that as well too. But it excites me more than a Michael Chandler fight. Does Conor McGregor deserve, I don't know, a title shot right now? No. Does he deserve Michael Chandler? I guess. But I would like to see Justin Gaethje get that fight instead of Michael Chandler, especially being that Justin Gaethje beat him. 300 needs Justin versus Holloway, BMF belt. That's a dangerous fight for Holloway as well, too. I don't know if I have that much faith in Holloway winning that fight. Going back to Oliveira versus Tsarukyan, maybe, listen, Tsarukyan and Oliveira could play out the same way Islam Makhachev and Oliveira played out. That being, Tsarukyan takes him down, gets a submission, grounds and pounds him, just overwhelms him. I think Oliveira in that first round I think Oliveira is one of the most dangerous fighters in the first round. Arman is higher ranked, so Charles' fight makes sense. I like that fight on paper. I give credit to Oliveira for taking that fight when maybe he didn't necessarily need to. Maybe he should have been next up, even if he didn't take that fight, because they already gave him the Islam Makhachev fight that was canceled. So you saw what happened. But nonetheless, he's fighting Tsarukyan. Tsarukyan looked great against Beneil. He also gets a finish in the first round against Beneil Dariush. And he beat Damir Ismagulov. That's a good win. He lost to Gamrot, but it was a controversial loss. He beat Davi Ramos. He beat Frivola as well, too. He lost to Islam Makhachev, but that was back in 2019 when he was 23 years old. You can argue he's a different fighter now. You can argue he's improved. Almost looks like he's on the roids a bit when he's like, bro, he just looks like shredded. He looks shredded against Beneil. That's a conversation for another day. But he beat Joaquim Silva. He beats Beneil Dariush. He's fighting. Is it the Arman Tsarukyan era? Or is Oliveira going to be the gatekeeper and stop him? Listen, I go back to Oliveira. Length, dexterity, the jiu-jitsu, the guillotine, the jab, the elbows from the clinch. Being there before. Seasoned. His chin does worry me a bit. Oliveira gets stunned early quite often. But I like him against Arman Tsarukyan. I truly, truly do. I think Oliveira has been doubted before, and every time he comes back and he surprises the masses. He's a gifted fighter. I got him beating Tsarukyan. You guys let me know how you guys feel about that. Now, let me also, from left field, we can jump back to this topic of UFC 299, UFC 300. Arman is higher ranked, so Charles makes sense. Hollywood says, I want to see Conor and Holloway. That first fight between both of them was interesting, so I wouldn't mind that. UFC needed Jones versus Miocic. I would have to disagree with you. I hate that fight, actually. And I hope that fight gets canceled. Speaking of the Miocic thing that you said, glad you brought that up, because let me see if I could find that real quick. Who was this posted by? TNT Sport, I guess. Let me see if I could find this real quick. To what you said, I didn't plan to talk about this, but now that you brought it up, maybe it's something that we have to. Quickly. Let me see if I could bring it up. TNT Sports UFC. I think it's here. Please don't let me down. And it's not here. I think Ariel Helwani posted it as well too. Let's see if I could find it. Give me 1 second and be patient with me. Is it here? No. Who the hell? TNT Sports. Yeah, that was TNT Sports UFC. Where is this post at? I'm sure they didn't delete it. Do they actually post that much? Here we go. Found it. This is a little thread that I found quite interesting. This is another one that I want to make a video about. I thought it was quite interesting what Tom Aspinall had to say. Let's quickly diverge into a couple points. Going to your point of Jones and Miocic at UFC 300, which I disagree with. Jesus said no one ever says Hito. Tarzan Strickland, welcome back. He says no, Aspinall versus Miocic. That's fair. Speaking about this, everybody's trying to match up Stipe or Aspinall against Jones, while Stipe and Aspinall fighting is the obvious solution. Listen, let's talk about it. Aspinall says, last time Stipe fought and won. Is this disrespectful, by the way? He goes, GTA San Andreas had just come out on PS2. The disrespect. He will fight next for the undisputed heavyweight title ahead of me, who's the interim champ, active and ranked #1 in the world right now. I don't know why I said world like that. This makes me quite upset. It continues. Let's see.
So we're not sort of there yet in terms of a fight being announced. Are you planning on going there? Are you planning on training with Khabib? Is there smoke where there's is there fire where there's smoke?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm definitely
That's not
working.
what I meant to click on. Oh, I clicked on. No, I'm trying to. Here we go. My bad. Then he also says, surely if you're interim champ, your next fight should be to fight for undisputed. I agree. If you win the interim title, the next fight should be for the title. So far, logical. So far, making sense. Is he a little bit salty? Yes. Is it deserved, or is it right? Is it right that he feels this way? I do believe he has a point. We continue. Absolutely, Stipe has a great resume. We give him credit and is a legend in his own right. But another haymaker by Tom Aspinall. This is what he says. Stipe has a great resume and is a legend in his own right. So has Tony Ferguson. Maybe we should give him a shot at the undisputed title next too. Jeez, the disrespect. I mean, the stray bullets that Ferguson is catching. But he makes sense. When was the last time that Stipe won? When was the last time that he looked impressive? He's about, 41 years old, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Stipe Miocic age. He's 41 years old. And he's getting, the Jones fight? Even though Aspinall won the interim title and one last post on the thread. Final fun fact. Since Stipe last won a fight, August, year 20, I have blown my knee out, went through the rehab process, and had a year off. Also had 7 UFC fights, including 4 wins versus 10 ranked opponents, or top 10 ranked opponents, and won the interim title on 2 weeks' notice. And that he's speaking of Sergey Pavlovich. Listen, he makes a compelling argument. I don't think UFC 300 needs Jonah and Aspinall. I think you would even reward the masses and the fans and the crowd, and I think they'll be more excited if it's Aspinall versus Miocic on 300. If it's Aspinall versus Jones at 300. But Jones versus Miocic at 300 is not it. It's just not. It's not the way to go. I think the obvious solution, like Tarzan said, is Stipe versus Aspinall. The obvious solution is for Stipe to retire. It just doesn't make any sense. 267-545-8096. But going to your point, Jesus, I just have to disagree with you. Aspinall versus Gane co-main. Aspinall versus Gane co-main for Jones versus Stipe. I still don't love it. If you won the interim title, give him the shot next. And Gane has been, the fall from grace that he has had is just depressing, just a little bit. I thought he was going to be the next one up. If there was something I was wrong about, that was the one. Tarzan said, I feel like we're disagreeing all day, and all of 2024, Jesus, so far, but I'm sure we'll pick it back up where we left off last year. Tom is incorrect to call Jones versus Stipe for the undisputed belt. By definition, in the presence of an interim belt, the world title is disputed. There is no undisputed champion currently, right? And that actually favors Tom Aspinall, for you to correct him in that aspect. God should retire to stop it.
Yo, shout out to Caesar, man.
Moving on. By the way, podcast at 7 p.m. with Trey Melton. We'll be doing a live stream. We'll be having a back and forth with him. And if you guys remember correctly, the last time he was on, he was getting flamed by Chris Faith. And he was wrong about Colby versus Leon, just like he's right about or wrong about almost everything. But he'll be back tonight, and let's see if he starts off this new year good. Other breaking news that we need to talk about some more, that I think it's a little bit important and that I think maybe we are interested in, is more fight news that was announced. This time not for the UFC, but this time a former UFC fighter. And what was that? Well, none other than Francis Ngannou is not an option anymore. So I wish I had a better picture. But Francis Ngannou versus Anthony Joshua is set. Let me see if I could find versus Francis confirmed. There we go. It's set. It's a better headline right there. But I should have trusted bad left hook like I usually do and not went to another source. But Joshua versus Francis Ngannou signed, confirmed, done deal. Let's put this to rest. Now, I'm not gonna pull a Ariel Helwani and talk about Dana White for 39 minutes, just bashing him on how he's a bad president or how he does this wrong and he was wrong, and just kind of beat a dead horse. But one thing Dana White did say, maybe this is perhaps the next video. Dana White said, I don't think there's big fights out there. He thinks there's big money fights, and I just don't see it. I disagree. Well, he was wrong about that. Not only did he fight Fury in the first fight, and again, ticket sales weren't the best, but he exceeded expectations as far as his performance. And for that very reason, I truly do believe people are going to be excited to see what he does next. What he does next is now Anthony Joshua, and I think fans are excited for this. Anthony Joshua coming off a win as well, too. And it was supposed to be, I remember the excitement, it was supposed to be Wilder and Joshua back then. Ariel Helwani broke the news as far as this next fight. But it's expected to be, and it says it right here, expected to be officially announced later this month in London, which would include an exact date and all that, which may or may not still be March 2nd. How do we feel about this fight? Francis did better than expected against Fury, but does that mean that he beats Anthony Joshua? Anthony Joshua doesn't have the best chin. Does that mean if Francis Ngannou connects the way he did against Fury, where he knocked him down, does he put him out as far as for good in the fight and gets a TKO finish? 267-545-8096 if you want to share your thoughts. Boxing needs to stop gifting MMA fighters payday. Francis versus AJ is a joke. Well, me and Jesus are at a clash of opinions so far today. Jesus, thank you for being here. Happy New Year's. I would agree with you that Fury versus Ngannou was sort of a joke. Did Francis deserve it as far as the payday? Yeah, you could argue that. But did he really have a chance? No. Should he have been blown out the water? Yes. Was he? No. Again, he exceeded expectations, did better than most fathomed. And for that reason, I think people are interested in this fight. I don't think it's a joke of a fight. I give Francis Ngannou somewhat of a chance. I don't know how much he's going to get paid. He's going to be in Saudi Arabia, so he's going to get paid quite some nice, maybe perhaps big bucks. Now, am I picking him to win? Something that I'm debating, but alluding back to the Dana White situation and whether Francis had a future, it's obvious that he did. Has a future fighting Joshua now. Let's say this is a competitive fight and he loses. Maybe he still fights Wilder. What if he beats Joshua? Maybe he fights Wilder as well. Fury purposely made Francis look so he can get payday versus AJ. That's an argument that I played with Jesus. Listen, maybe Fury allowed it to be more competitive than what it should have been. That's a good argument. I don't know. I don't know if we could prove that though, and that's the tough part. At the end of the day, as far as the illusion that was given, if you want to call it that, was that it was competitive, and now he has a real chance against Joshua, and he's getting two big paydays, one prior with Fury and now with Joshua. Daddy says, thoughts on the Miami alien. Listen, I don't know what to think about that. Is this too, gotta be careful here with the copyright stuff. Is this to kind of distract us from the Epstein list? I don't know.
You need people. You need people like me so you can point your fingers.
I don't know. Perhaps. I'm not quite sure. It is a little bit strange. I don't know enough about it. I would have to read into it a little bit more. I don't know what's going on. It is a little bit strange. 100 cops for like teenagers that were lighting fire. I don't know the whole story behind it. So it's tough for me to say. It's tough for me to say. But going back to fight news, maybe one of the last topics that we'll touch on, again, 267-545-8096. If you want to share your thoughts on all the breaking news, we've covered quite extensively a lot today. We also will be having a stream, a live stream tonight. Speaking of all the breaking news that we have had, and I can't wait to do more of that. I can't wait for 2024 and all the work that we've been putting in. Maybe one of the last topics, guys, because this is this is the next pay-per-view event. If I'm not mistaken, this is the next one that we have to look forward to. Yes, 297. Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland. He was on a podcast with Theo Von, and the man cried some real tears. Sean Strickland, that's known for being a bully. Maybe this is another video I could make too, man. I can't wait to make some more content, so let's get it. But anyways, he was crying real, man, big tears, live on stream with Theo Von about the abuse that he has faced when he was young. And what made him react this way? What made him break down? Perhaps it was that press conference with Drickus, if you guys remember that. That press conference where Drickus goes, "You think your dad beat the out of you?" Paraphrasing a bit. "Think your dad beat the out of you? What I'm going to do to you is far worse." Initially, to be transparent, I thought to myself, damn, a good little comeback for Sean Strickland talking all that mess. I didn't think about the whole, childhood abuse as far as, and I initially thought to myself, Sean Strickland is okay with talking about anybody else, about Ian Garvey and his wife, the WAG and all that, which was a little bit strange. But let me also remind you guys as well, too. There was a Brazilian fighter that I remember that died. I think he got hit by a bus. And just to remind you guys, there was a Brazilian fighter that got hit by a bus. And maybe I found the Reddit thread that I need. But there was a Brazilian fighter that got hit by a bus, and Sean Strickland was like, if he can't avoid a bus, I'm paraphrasing again. If he can't avoid a bus, maybe he shouldn't have been a fighter, something like that. Imagine the way that family felt. Sean Strickland talking in that fashion. Miller, DC Army Mother Efforts. Leroy, thank you so much. Welcome to the stream. I just wanted to remind you guys, he was okay talking about someone that died and making a joke about it when their family is still grieving. Sean Strickland has said some outrageous things in his past. But when it comes to Theo Von and when it comes to Drickus, when it comes to Sean Strickland basically saying you shouldn't make fun of this, listen, you set the bar pretty damn low. You talk about Adesanya and the frosted tips and everything that you have said. I'm just saying. Strickland also made fun of Roundtree for crying about his mental health. Listen, just the way that that it has played out, you can't be crying victim to me. I'm not saying what he went through isn't real. I'm not saying that. But he's been crying, but he's been crying on podcasts saying he's been through a lot and that Drickus shouldn't talk about it and how much of a scumbag Drickus is for bringing that up. Sean Strickland was okay bringing almost anything up about anyone else. UFC 300 will live up to the hype. 62% said no, Leroy, which is crazy. So I'm glad you reminded me about that as well too. Let's quickly just look through some of what this article said and let's see if we agree. Remember he jumped in the crowd and this is what Strickland said. He says, I get out. The only thing I can see is a guitar. And I crack him in the head talking about his father, right? But let's see what else he has to say. Let's see if there's anything here that is quite interesting.
Like, I remember I was like in second grade.
This is
Sometimes it just comes out.
Oh, no, dude. Like, I remember, when I was a kid, I used to scratch my gum. I don't give a fuck. I mean, you could post this. I don't care. When I talk about, like, man, it's like you don't understand. You're like, when you go through that level of trauma, like, you just view the world differently. So it's like I have a hole in my gum because I'd have so much anxiety as a kid, and I would just scratch my gum until just blood, And, you're in pre-elementary school. You don't know why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fucking it.
I sympathize with him. I truly do. I truly do sympathize with him. I wish I would have found the time marker where he talks about Dricus. I do sympathize with him. But at the end of the day, he reminds me of Colby a bit, as far as Colby says some disgusting things. So imagine Colby turning back and saying, you can't say whatever you just said. If Strickland was able to talk about the dead, if he was able to talk about Khalil Rountree's mental health, and then someone comes after him, he can't just say, hey, draw the line there because it's about him. That's just the way I feel about it. You guys let me know. Maybe that's the next video to work on a little bit. UFC so watered down. It feels that way, Leroy. Especially with 300 and how it might be underwhelming. I'm one of the 62% all good, says Leroy. No way Tony Ferguson has said that he has a fight coming soon. The man needs to stop. Let's look it up. Is it on his Instagram as we speak? Let's see. He wrote on his Instagram. Let's see. As we this was his last post. So maybe it's in his story. Let's see. Well, I could be wrong. Let's see. I don't see anything on there. If you want to send it to me and then I'll put it on screen. I don't see anything. I was looking through his Instagram, but I didn't see anything on there. Ferguson needs to hang it up, Tehran. I think that's fair to say. He's been in the UFC longer than he should have been. He's on a 7-fight win streak. It needs to, or is it 8? I got like 1,000 tabs open right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's on a 7-fight win streak. It's over. What did Adrian Broner say? Take the L out of lover. It's over, brother. That's how I feel about it. That's it, man. You looked horrible against Nate Diaz. You got submitted by Bobby Green. Bobby Green is not a submission specialist. You were supposed to be that, a submission specialist. You got submitted by Bobby Green. It's over. Then you lose to Patty Pimblett, who I'm not that high on. It's over. I left a short voicemail. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. 267-545-8096. Beta, thank you for leaving a voicemail. My guy, Happy New Year's.
Miller, it's Beta. Listen. You're going to talk about Ryan Garcia.
Oh, I forgot about this.
You got to say it out loud for everybody to hear it. That man is a duck. The duck. The daffiest of ducks, if you will. You may not be comfortable saying it, so you can play this out loud. He's a duck. And I hope Barrosos comes back to his Rolly rematch that he deserves, wins that, and then KOs Garcia right after so they can both lose to an abuelo. Please, and thank me, just talk about it one more time for me, just personally. Okay? You have a good year. Prospero ano.
Well, didn't plan to talk about some boxing, even though because I simply forgot. But now that Beta brought it up, Hollywood Hito's favorite fighter. This will be the last news that we get into. Hollywood Hito's favorite fighter, Ryan Garcia. Remember, he was supposed to fight Devin Haney. This was in the works. But he made a post, and this is what he says. I've notified my team I'm going a different route. My intent now is to fight Rolando Romero. I pray my team backs me on this decision. Oscar, make this fight happen. That's the move. Bigger fight, bigger business. Is it a bigger fight, or is he simply ducking? Is he ducking Devin Haney? And where the hell is my life headed if I'm defending Devin Haney and criticizing Ryan Garcia? But here we are. If you know my history, that's why I say that. Ryan Garcia, this reminds me all over again. He was supposed to fight Tank Davis. And he says, you know what? I'm gonna push Tank Davis to the side, or Abdul Wahid now. I'm going to push him to the side, and I'm going to fight Manny Pacquiao in an exhibition fight. When everybody wanted that Gervonta Davis fight instead. Granted, credit to him, he eventually fought Gervonta Davis, and he quit on his knee. Can't put it any other way. That's just the way I see it. If you agree with me or disagree with me, that's okay. I think he could have got up, and I think he chose not to. But he's supposed to be fighting Devin Haney, and now he says he's notified his team. He's going a different route. And okay, you're going a different route. Who are you going to fight? Romero, the guy that lost to the guy you lost to? Wow, impressive, I guess. Are we supposed to be impressed by this? It just doesn't make any sense to me. You're fighting Romero, who lost to an abuelo, who lost to a grandpa, but they actually gave him the win because who was it? Tony Weeks that stopped it early, and Tony Weeks just stopped another fight pretty early as well too. That they were saying as far as the Virgil Ortiz fight. So it's all just strange with Garcia, man. I mean, you want the guy to, I don't know, to look impressive, to impress you, and then this is what he does. And then one of the top comments that I'm looking at, if you see on the right here, it says duck season. And I couldn't agree more. If what the fighters want to see is you and Devin Haney, and if you're talking heavy about that fight, and then you don't make that fight happen, it's just, it's annoying. Hydration clause. Listen, he signed the paper. At the end of the day, Beta wants every sport to die. Now, Devin Dad didn't agree to the contract. That's fair. But don't try to sell me the lie, if that's the case, that this is a bigger fight, this is bigger business. It's not. I mean, it'll be funny to see Romero talk trash, but what is he going to say about Ryan Garcia? It's two losers against Tank that are fighting each other. When Devin Haney, at the end of the day, is a bigger name than Romero right now. He is a bigger name. Ryan Garcia is a pretty big name too. No one can take that away from him, but nobody wants. Let me not get ahead of myself. I was about to say no one wants to see Garcia Romero. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying this isn't it. Last fight, he's saying what? He's a bigger pay-per-view attraction when his last fight wasn't even on pay-per-view. It was on DAZN, and he struggled against a natural 135-pounder, moved him up to 140. That's all I'm saying. A little bit sketchy business. And then talking about the Abuelo fight as well, too. Credit to him for winning. Ryan hasn't done crap 140 to fight for the title. That's true. But he is a name. Garcia Romero, I just listen. If you fight Romero, that's understandable. And he hasn't done enough to fight for the title at 140. I agree with you, Jesus. But to tell us that this is a bigger fight in Garcia and Romero is just simply not, in my opinion. That's just the way I feel about it. Number one commentary channel on YouTube. If there's any other subjects that you guys want to talk about, let me know before we get out of here. Credit to Barroso. That man is about 1,046 years old. And he got a big win this past weekend. And he would have beat Romero if the fight wasn't stopped early. But unfortunately for him, Vegas had some other plans. That's just how I feel about it. But credit to him for getting the win. We know boxing is dying when we're talking about Haney versus Ryan. Guys, this is the first stream of 2024, and it has been a lot of fun. And guys, real quick, thank you guys for the ongoing support. We've been making content. We've been making videos, and it just feels good to just keep it going. Thank you guys. Let me quickly. If you guys want to do a brother a favor, just one time. I'm not asking for dinero, so don't worry. We'll never do that. But if you guys want to do a brother a solid, this is what you do. You head over. Very simple. Doesn't cost you nothing, I promise. You head over to this video, which is my last. You watch it entirely. You leave a comment with your thoughts, whether you agree or disagree, which I feel most will disagree. That is my last video. Start with a name that is killing boxing. But I don't have real fighters, just social media, which is sad, right? He thought I want boxing to die. Ryan was the one who picked Rolly for Romero. Listen, you make a solid point. This is a video that you guys need to go watch. Leave a comment over there. If you have nothing to say, leave me the emoji. Watch it entirely. It helps out the channel immensely. I'll see. Why didn't it make that a link? I don't understand why I didn't make that a link. But maybe you guys could copy and paste. I spam that like crazy. Go watch that fight or go watch that video about certain fights. Hit the thumbs up. Press would be good. It probably would so. Maybe we'll talk about that some more later. 7 p.m. another live stream. Go watch that video. Leave a comment. Helps my channel immensely. Love you guys. Thank you for helping this grow. This will be a huge year. I hate to be that new year, new me guy, but this will be a